And I think a lot of the problems, it's been getting very mixed reviews, and I think the problem is with this subtitle, the musical. That does it no justice at all.
Really?
It's staggering, stunning in an audience. So what we have is a night with. It's as if she's in concert. She's sitting on the stage, she's swinging from a bottle, and she's singing and giving us little memories, thoughts on life.
I think I see where you're going, because some critics have said it's a fantastic individual performance that sits in an empty vessel of a show.
Yeah.
And you're saying that that's because the expectations of what the show is have been wrong.
Yes, I agree. And I do think that it's obviously a very loving show. There's very little reference to drugs. There's a bit of a throwaway comment. So we don't really look at the demons. What we do is we explore womanhood very powerfully, but also the blues.
How long do we have to see this?
This one it's on until September the 28th. It's on at the Peacock, which is just down by Aldwych in
Quite
London.
a small auditorium, actually.
No, it's a big auditorium. So the Peacock is it's a bit of a barn of a room. And again, I would say this show might be better in a slightly smaller venue, but I cannot recommend the performances highly enough.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wansler with your headlines at 11 o'clock. The Grenfell Tower fire, which killed 72 people, was a result of decades of failure. That's according to a long-awaited report. Over almost 1,700 pages, the Grenfell report reveals how missed opportunities by the government, building companies, contractors and council staff turned Grenfell into a death trap. Families and survivors of the deadly blaze 7 years ago say today's final damning report shows they were failed by calculated dishonesty and greed. A 14-year-old boy has been charged with the murder of an 8-year-old grandfather. Bim Coley was attacked while walking his dog in Franklin Park, Brownstone Town in Leicester on Sunday and later died in hospital. His family say their hearts are broken. Rishi Sunak, now leader of the opposition, has attacked Labour's move to axe a winter fuel allowance for millions of pensioners. He faced off with Sir Keir Starmer at the first Prime Minister's questions since Parliament returned from the summer recess. The Conservative leader accused the Prime Minister of taking money from low-income pensioners and ploughing it into inflation-busting pay rises for union workers. However, Sir Keir Starmer defended his decision to cut winter fuel payments, saying it's essential to stabilise the economy. In the US, 2 students and 2 teachers have died after a shooting at a high school in Georgia. These are pictures of Appalachia High School in Barrow County, which was put on lockdown this morning after reports of gunfire there. Georgia State Police say a 14-year-old student at the high school is in custody after the shooting. The White House has now been briefed on the incident. Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Chris Hosey, has more.
There are 4 individuals who are deceased from this incident, 9 that have been taken to local hospitals with various injuries. Of those that are deceased, 2 are students and 2 are teachers here at the school. As the sheriff mentioned earlier this morning, the shooter is in custody. He is a 14-year-old student here at the high school. Again, he has been taken into custody. He will be charged with murder and he will be tried as an adult.
And back in the UK, Priti Patel has become the first Tory MP to be voted out of the party's leadership contest with only 14 votes from 121 Tory MPs. Meanwhile, Robert Jenrick came top of the ballot with 28 votes. MPs cast their opening votes this afternoon, reducing the number of candidates from 6 to 5. The contenders now include James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, Tom Tugendhat, Mel Stride and Kemi Badenoch. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Now it's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia, and hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers with 3 available comedians. I'm Leo Curse, and joining me tonight are Kerry Marks and Jonathan Cogan.
I'm barely available. I'm going on holiday in like 2 hours.
Where are you going? 2
hours? Go to Rhodes.
Really?
Yeah, I've got like a late flight, and I've got to like pack and everything, and I've got to remember all these stories. I'm stressing out, man, and it's going to be okay, right?
The most important thing are these stories.
Of course.
I don't care about your packing. You just need some Speedos.
I wasn't available either. I had to cancel everything. so busy.
I'm glad you did it for us. Anyway, let's have a quick look at tomorrow's front pages. The Mirror leads with "Now Get Them Justice," talking about the Grenfell Tower inquiry. The Telegraph has sewage leak bosses to face 2 years in jail. The Guardian has Grenfell, a disaster caused by dishonesty and greed. The Times has killed by greed and a culture of dishonesty. The Eye has everyone failed them, again talking about Grenfell. And finally, the Daily Star has "I'll tell you all about the little green men." That's Donald Trump. He's going to reveal the UFO files, and those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at tomorrow's front pages, starting with the Times, Kerry. What have they got?
Yes, well, the Times have interestingly led with a full front page cover of all the victims of the Grenfell disaster. And the story, of course, is that the inquiry has finally reached a conclusion after 7 years. It moved like a sloth in a tank of peanut butter and told us what we already knew. It's been a cruel for those who've been awaiting justice, and I suppose that they've had a huge amount to get through in this inquiry, and it's been very thorough. But we're hearing Sir Keir Starmer has said that companies found responsible by the public inquiry for horrific failings will be banned from winning public contracts. You'd think their new CV would be enough. It shows exactly what they've been up to. The inquiry basically found everyone involved is guilty, from government level, at local government level, all the building companies involved. It was just horrendous. Resident concerns were ignored. They were dismissed as troublemakers. There is still thousands of people up and down the country in buildings that are unsafe with the cladding, and they're sort of in a time bomb, really. And there was a fire last week at a block in Dagenham. And Phil, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, well, you mentioned the building. There's about 4,500 that have been identified, tall buildings, all with unsafe cladding. And again, like anything here, it's going to be a slow process to try and get that fixed. Now,
but we're already years on. You'd think, if I lived in one of those buildings, I'd be out with a hammer the next morning getting this flammable cladding off my building.
I think part of it, if you're a freeholder of a building, I think if you said, well, right, it's really hard to sell or move out because you're not allowed to, or there's all these extra fees that you have to do. So you're now stuck in a building with extra fees that you didn't sign up for. Like, the danger itself is obviously the main concern, but then there's a financial element where you're kind of stuck and you can't move. So it's all pretty tricky. Happened to a friend of mine, and he got out in the end. He's all right. But,
It's like every disaster film of the 80s always turns out to be the builders cutting corners, That's we know this.
Alien.
You think this is something we'd all watch out for and say that there should have been processes in place, because they're also talking about new legislative. I had to actually move to say the word then. Changes to deal with this, but you'd think laws for criminal negligence already exist. So I'm kind of surprised that we need new ones. But
getting down to the actual cladding itself, I think it was just the amount, the cost that they were shaving off. It was like thousands of pounds when it could have been other cladding that isn't flammable. So it seems crazy that just that small incentive to just increase the profit margin by a few £1,000 could lead to such a horrific tragedy, and also the people in the flats were told to stay in their flats.
Yes.
I got to be honest, the same
Part of
thing
this was tragic.
The same thing happened in 9/11. People were told to stay in the Twin Towers. I got to be honest, if I'm ever in a block of flats that's on fire, I am going to get out as soon as possible. I am not, this is a lesson. Both of those things are lessons to us. Don't listen to anybody and get out, I think.
But it makes it all the more tragic, doesn't it? Trusting the authority when it's the authority that let you down in the first place. So, the whole thing is one great big horror. But glad the inquiry is finally over and then that people can get some justice now, I guess. So
yeah, hope so. And moving on, we've got something a bit lighter in the Daily Star, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Well, it could actually be the most interesting thing of all time if it becomes true. But let's get to the headline. OK. I'll tell all I know about the little green men. So this is a headline in the Star. First of all, a bit harsh. They've said orange man baby at the top. They just had to take a swipe at Trump there. It didn't really seem like he's being...
That's not one of the aliens. That is Trump.
Orange man baby, yeah.
Now they're green man babies.
True. Oh, get them together. It's like Tic Tac, which is also a UFO. Anyway, right. So basically, this is an interesting story because Trump has said in the middle of a big interview with, I think it was Lex Fridman, the podcaster and CII plant, and just a cool guy.
Superman's enemy.
Is he? Oh, yeah, like that. He has hair, this guy. But he's basically, Trump has said that if he gets in, he's going to reveal all the secrets of Area 51 about all the spaceships that have been either dug up or crash landed.
Why didn't he do it before?
Yeah, why didn't he do it before? He knew it.
He had that chance, didn't he?
This time I'll do it. I think he knows
it's like Kamala when she says, when I'm in power, I'm going to fix the economy. It's like, you're in power.
This is just Trump says things, really, isn't it? Trump vows to release new Pentagon UFO videos if he wins after admitting there could be life on other planets. What does he mean, admitting it? He's admitting it, like he knows or he's responsible for it. He's going to release all the file and, we had a load of files released a while ago, didn't we, with the FBI files and so on in it. There is a few things that are hard to explain, and maybe there is alien life visiting us. It seems odd that they largely choose America and like to be seen by American pilots and not the rest of the world.
They're all over the place. They are.
They're
in Russia.
In Scotland. In Scotland,
the abductees tend to be American. There's an awful lot. They travel millions of light years to come here and probe my anus, in Scotland, there's better things to do.
In Scotland, there's a triangle around Falkirk. I don't know what it is about Falkirk, if they put something in the Buckfast, but there are a lot of UFO sightings there. But Trump has also said something a bit closer to home. He's going to release the Epstein files. So Epstein Island, where obviously rich and powerful men like Bill Clinton and Bill Gates travelled or, were on his private jet, may have gone there. And could have been
Stephen Hawking.
Could have been Stephen Hawking. And there are a lot of girls there. Some of them apparently underage, according to the charges that were laid against Jeffrey Epstein. And Trump said on the podcast, he said, a lot of powerful men went to this island. Fortunately, I was not one of them. Suggesting that if he got an invite, he would have been there.
Yeah.
Which,
is he just angry he wasn't invited? Is that what you think?
Yeah, now he's getting revenge.
Yes.
But yeah, are you looking forward to the Epstein client list? I don't know why hasn't the Epstein client list been released either? Surely we should know which rich and powerful men were going to Epstein Island to get up to no good with underage girls.
Yes. Well, possible reason is there for keeping that a secret? I mean, the UFO files as well, but you think this one would have some kind of priority, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
We need to know what went on at this billionaire island where you can do this ultimate fantasy island.
Yeah.
Like that, the regular program of the...
Get a spaceship.
The what?
Getting a spaceship.
Do you think the UFO files are going to reveal that's what's happening?
I think so, yeah.
It's all integrated.
It's all connected. It's all connected. I've got, all the string on my wall to...
There was the UFO sightings in Lincolnshire a few years back. You remember that one where people saw lights in the sky, the balls of light they couldn't explain, and a wind farm got hit. One of the blades came off a wind in a wind farm, and wind turbine. And at the time, everyone was saying that it can't be explained by any natural phenomenon. Aliens have travelled all this way and then lost control of their vehicle at the last minute. But it turned out when they looked into it, there was a fireworks display going on down the road, and there was just damage and metal fatigue of the wind farm.
And let's finally just end on this quickly. It's a story in the Telegraph about sewage.
OK, so this is the water companies that the government is now going to block rewards given to company bosses who've received £26 million in bonuses since 2019, despite these sewage spills. And the industry regulator that has the unfortunate name Ofwat, careful how you say it, is consulting on this. Some of the companies have refused to take bonuses, and some of them, like Anglian Water's boss Peter Simpson, has taken 302,033p. I don't know what the 33p was about, but that seems like quite an extraordinary amount to be putting sewage into our waters. And,
and also losing a lot of shareholder value as well.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And it's also just not what their job is supposed to be, and it's concerning. My grandfather once said, if you're thinking of pooing in a river, think of the little fishes. They do it, so you may as well. But he was mad, so I don't know why I thought that.
And he didn't run Thames Water.
Well, he didn't, fortunately, but I think maybe he would have been popular with them.
What's odd here is Keir Starmer's actually gone on record and said that we'll be pollution-free from the river to the sea. So I don't really know what to make of that. But
OK, well,
he said it.
That is the front pages done and dusted. Join us after the break for the latest on the Tory leadership contest, how Labour are helping Kamala, and Tony Blair talks about the downside of mass immigration. See you in a moment.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
With record temperatures expected this week, how do zoos keep their cooler creatures cold? Well, at Yorkshire Wildlife Park, the polar bears are enjoying a vegetable ice block.
Polar bears, they do have quite a variety of different temperatures that they naturally do find. Once they're moving off these polar ice caps, they are in the likes of down in the areas of Canada, Hudson Bay. Naturally, they were finding polar bears in 35-degree temperatures year upon year. So they are very much used to warm temperatures and heat waves as such. What you'll tend to find is they'll go for a good swim and then go for a snooze in the shade thereafter.
Not wanting to miss out, the sea lions are treated to a huge fish lolly.
In the hot weather, it's really important to give them ice because these guys, they don't drink salt water. These pools are actually saltwater pools. They actually drink fresh water. They've got 2 freshwater pools in their house, but again, being able to provide that in their outside enclosure is also really important. So offering them ice with their fish is not only enriching, but it's actually beneficial to their welfare as well.
Other animals like the lemurs will be basking in the sun, but also cooling down with frozen sweet potato.
So we've got 3 different species of lemur here. They come in all different shapes, colours, sizes, but they are native to Madagascar. Madagascar can get quite hot, understandably, so throughout the cold months here in Yorkshire, we do give them a nice heated house all year round, but especially making sure it's nice and warm in the winter for them. And it does mean that in the hot spells as well that we're able to keep our eyes on them and try and give them things that make them a bit more comfortable with that incoming hot weather as well.
The frozen food on offer here certainly has the seal of approval on what could be the hottest day of the year.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Thursday's newspapers. I'm Leo Carson. I'm still here with Kerry Marks and Jonathan Cogan. We've got the Sun now, with a famous face knocked out early in the Tory leadership contest. To paraphrase the Sex Pistols, it's pretty vacant. Well, Priti Patel's slot is now vacant. Jonathan.
Yeah, a woman hasn't been knocked out so brutally in public since the Olympic boxing. So, Priti Patel is first out of Tory leadership race as Robert Jenrick surges ahead, but Kemi Badenoch hot on his heels. So, Robert Jenrick has today emerged as the new frontrunner in the Tory leadership race, followed by Kemi. So, the ex-immigration minister picked up 28 votes, which was enough to win, well, enough to be in the lead. Miss Badenoch got 22 votes. And then, Priti Patel, who is the ex-Home Secretary, which I already knew, apparently, was knocked out of the contest, picking up just 14 votes. So that's it. The results are in. Who's your money on, Leo, on Kerry?
Well, this is, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, Kieran? Because there doesn't seem to be much passion for any particular candidate.
No, it could go any way at the moment, which... who did you think was going to go out first?
I didn't think Priti was going to go out first. I thought she might actually win.
Really?
Yeah.
OK.
She's a recognisable face. She's probably the only one a lot of people have heard of.
I think she'd be the one that the membership would go for rather than necessarily the party. I don't know, because...
And she's got that sex appeal as well.
Is that what it is?
The members would also see that.
I thought would come back on her is that she was blamed for the failure of the Rwanda scheme, and she was also accused of bullying, those allegations, which may have come back to haunt her a little bit. And it's really a case of what the party's going to look for now, because they're going to look to where they're going to take votes from, and whether it's from the Reform voters and win them back over, in which case they need someone to the right of the party, or whether they're going to look more to the centre ground to bring people in, which is interesting to see, who's going which direction there. Kemi, of course, is firmly right of the on the right side of the party, so, but she's also very popular in the party. I don't think there's any easy predictions at the moment, because what we're going to see is also the One Nationers and what the grassroots want and so on is going to be also there's whoever's going to sweep up Priti's votes now.
Yeah.
Right, now that she's out of the race. So I don't know. They definitely want it done and dusted by October 30th, which is in time to have someone there to reply to whatever the budget's going to be. But here's an interesting thing. Tugendhat, who finished fourth, but he achieved the same percentage of votes as Liz Truss did in the first ballot before she went on to win the seat. So
it's a bit of a good sign.
It's hard to know at the moment.
Victory, though. I mean, she didn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, that might have actually stopped someone else. They might say, "Oh no, we're going to learn from that and not do that again." I think where we're at right now, my wisdom here says anything could happen.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned, are they going to shift to the right to hoover up Reform's votes, or are they going to tack to the centre? Because all the advice says, the elections are won in the centre. I think the centre has shifted, and I think Reform getting 20% of the votes in the general election shows that. And I think Keir is going to be a one-term Prime Minister. If he even makes it to the end of 5 years. So, I mean, I think it's the Tories, if they can get their house in order, it's the Tories to lose. So now's the point where they can pick and choose how they want to govern. And it seems to me that they lost because they didn't govern as Tories, because they went to centrist and they were basically just a fluffy Labour Party.
It does feel like the Tories are taking a bit of a gap year, and they're going to come back we're going to do it properly this time. Who knows?
Yeah. Hopefully it's a gap year. Someone that's going to toughen them up instead of coming back with, henna tattoos. And
it's also what happens with Labour in the meantime. And whilst they're still talking about 10 years of pain, it might be that after 5 years people go, that's enough pain.
Yeah. We've got the Times now, and prospective Tory candidate Robert Jenrick has been accused of noticing segregation in Britain.
Accused of noticing. Robert Jenrick recorded calling Birmingham a segregated city. This is written like a gotcha, but I'm sure he just said it meaning it. Former immigration minister said the recent level of net immigration, which hit a record of 764,000 in 2022, was not only placing pressure on public services and housing, but also leading to intercommunal violence and diminishing public trust. It's really a case of how everyone's phrasing this, whether it's we use terms like self-segregation, where different groups cluster into specific neighbourhoods, or sometimes we get more polite and call it cultural pluralism. But of course, these are all phrases for the same thing. And what's happening is that a lot of people feel that integration isn't happening at all. That it's, and there was the violence that broke out in 2022 in Leicester, and then moved on to Birmingham between Muslims and Hindus. And I suppose what seems to be happening is a lot of people thought that people would come here and integrate, but the numbers are expanding so fast that instead what's happening is all the animosities, the regional geopolitical tensions of thousands of miles away are now coming into the country. And I think that's partly why for the last 11 months with the pro-Palestine marches, people are saying, hold on, this is not something normal for our country. This is now changing foreign policy, and of course with the election as well. So there was a graffiti writer recently who put up a sign who wrote "No whites allowed," which caused a lot of upset.
That's like every advert casting bracket.
Well, yes. Well, we don't know whether maybe he didn't finish it. Maybe he got scared away and he was actually going to say "No whites allowed to sweep the streets" or something. I wanted to.
Could have been,
but I don't think that was it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look. Call me a purist, but I think Banksy's work has gone downhill.
You're a purist.
Looking at I mean, they say this as if Robert Jenrick is just inventing the fact that there's segregation, but no, he's pointing out that in different wards in Birmingham there are seriously different levels of demographics. So in Sparkhill North, 82% of the population are Asian, and only 4.5% are white. And in other areas, 90% of the population is white, while only 3% are Asian. And there's a lot of wards that are close to each other, but are completely demographically distinct. So that's clearly a sort of almost the start of the balkanisation of the UK.
What does balkanised mean?
It means when areas separate by ethnic or religious groups.
Okay.
So and then so Yugoslavia broke up into the sort of Balkan territories.
What's the Falklands?
The Falklands is an island off the coast of Argentina, and we went to war in the 80s.
Come up? Did I miss something?
Well, it's actually an island off the coast of Argentina.
Yes. Good.
Join us after the break.
No, we've still got more to go.
You can't do that.
We've got the Telegraph now with Tony Blair finally admitting that the mass immigration that he started does actually have some downsides, Jonathan.
Well, you should have said something, Leo. Come on. It's all right. Sir Tony Blair admits influx of migrants under his premiership placed strain on communities. So celebrated war criminal Sir Tony addressed his record on immigration, which has come under scrutiny since his departure from number 10 in 2007. So he defended his record during his time in Downing Street, saying that his approach helped the economy, but he did also comment on how his immigration policies that he set in motion has caused strains in certain communities. So it does seem to be a news story day where people are sort of commenting on the fact that there are unfortunately tensions, perhaps between different groups within certain communities, and it's no longer something that isn't being commented on. It seems to be something that has really become visible.
Yeah.
And that's going to be discussed. And like anything, any issue, no matter how big or small, you have to address it. Otherwise, it will just continue in a certain direction.
Yeah, and it seems to be quite a radical experiment for a country to attempt as well. I mean, we went from having quite low numbers of immigration, well under 100,000, and now we're having 1.2 million people a year come into the UK, and it's not without some friction.
There was a lot of immigration during the 60s and 70s, but then suddenly it's.
But even then, it was much
wasn't
slower.
This kind of. Yeah, it was slower, and what's happened now? It's accelerated incredibly.
And it also tended to be more. It was people who are culturally similar, so people from the West Indies, people who Christians, and also more middle class. My uncle came from India. In the 60s, and he's middle class guy. Whereas now it's just anybody who can get here.
It felt like that. It felt like back then people were just grateful to be here, and now it feels like the numbers are so much that there's a different dynamic going on. I'm sure plenty of people are still just very grateful to be here and so on, but it's still it takes small numbers. You're not. I know.
I'm only here because I can't get into America.
The thing is with Blair is that he's admitted this is a really odd thing to say anyway. It's like it's fairly obvious. He's admitting a lot of things at the moment that he got wrong, and but as with what's going on in Germany at the moment, where 1 million people were at Balletin. And it's getting to be a bit late for whoops, really. Net migration increased fivefold during the Labour administration, and his decade in power had been shown to be almost directly aligned with the start of the modern mass immigration to the UK, which is basically, that's what happened. He flew the doors open, let down the drawbridge, opened UK's legs and bent over, and this is where we're at
now. That's a lot of metaphors.
Yeah, I thought I'd throw them all into to see how long I could get that sentence, really. You'd hope, there's lots of peaceful people who, immigrants in this country who, you'd hope what would happen is we would demonstrate to the rest of the world how this leads to harmony.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be happening. And
Well, I think
as the experiment has gone wrong, and he's kind of admitting, but he's also being a bit mealy-mouthed over it. He's saying that it wasn't really his fault and he would do the same thing, but at the same time, if I was in again, I wouldn't do the same thing.
And he also says that it boosted the economy. But we've seen since 2000, since his, Blair's experiment in mass immigration kicked off, GDP per capita has absolutely stagnated in the UK after rising for decades. Because obviously, as you let more people in, although it provides fuel for the economy per capita, you're not going to. Yeah.
Well, we've done this with slogans and insisting that the health service is strained. We need more doctors, so letting in more doctors makes sense, which it does. But the trouble is, if you then let in 10,000 people for every doctor, you've still got the same problem you had before, or worse.
Yeah.
As it
well,
continues.
that's the end of part 2. Coming up, Facebook decides to allow anti-Semitism, prostitutes can't get bank accounts, and another big American brand drops diversity, equity, and inclusion. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. We're at the start of a pretty wet period across southern areas with a warning in force all the way through until the end of Friday. But it will remain quite dry actually across north and western areas. We've got high pressure starting to build in from the north and west. We will develop an easterly wind, however, so that's going to drag in some cloud across eastern areas of Scotland, northeastern England as well overnight tonight. Further north and west though, staying dry and clear across Northern Ireland and western areas of Scotland as well as some northwestern areas of Wales. Into the south though, some outbreaks of very heavy rain starting to develop, and we do have that warning in force. So potentially a bit of a fresh start to the day across northwestern areas of Scotland, but it's across the south with plenty of cloud around and outbreaks of heavy rain. We could see some travel disruption where we have got that warning in force. Not everywhere is going to see the rain all day, but where you do see it is likely to bring some surface water. Could be quite a murky start to the day across eastern areas of Scotland as well as northeastern England, but plenty of sunshine across Northern Ireland, the Western Highlands as well as the islands throughout Thursday, and it will feel quite warm in that sunshine with light winds. Much better weather than we've had lately across these areas, and in fact temperatures could climb higher than they have done since May by Friday across parts of the northwest. Very different story though in the south with outbreaks of heavy rain developing, most likely to turn quite heavy across southwestern areas of England, South Wales as well. So pretty dull day across the south, but quite a big difference from the northwest. And a similar day to come on Friday. Further outbreaks of rain across the south, so we'd like to see further flooding issues and surface water. Easterly wind will continue to bring some cloud to the coast of the northeast, but it will burn back a little more, so there will be more in the way of sunshine on Friday, more widely in northern areas. Another fine day to come Saturday and Sunday in the north with further outbreaks of heavy rain across southern areas. Bye-bye.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And that's why he's banned from Pets at Home. Welcome back to Headliners. We've got The Guardian now, and Facebook will allow people to post from the river to the sea. Is this a win for free speech or a lose for Jews, Jonathan?
Let's find out. Lose for Jews.
Yeah, it's a bit of a slogan I'm working on.
Yeah, I've noticed. Right, Meta's moderation board backs decision to allow from the river to the sea in posts. So Meta's content moderation board has supported the company's decision to allow Facebook posts containing that catchy old phrase from the river to the sea after ruling that a blanket ban on the pro-Palestine slogan would hinder free speech. So they've taken the free speech approach and allowed it. They've also said that the phrase has multiple meanings and can be used in various ways with different intentions. So it could be seen as encouraging anti-Semitism and the elimination of Israel, but they also said they're happy to take that risk. So that's what they've gone with. I mean, look, yes, things can have multiple meanings. I mean, also people really started chanting it early October last year, so there's obviously an association. At the same time, should you block people being able to say a phrase which in their minds might mean just solidarity with a group of people? I don't think you should block it. I'm a free speech guy.
But I'm a free speech guy as well. And but it's interesting that this is a phrase that appears in Hamas's charter. Yeah. So it's got that association. So to see people chanting it, Kerry, after Hamas atrocity.
I've no problem. Free speech, totally, I'm fine with it. Free speech should allow this. But the same, don't kid me. Don't lie to me about the meaning of a thing in order to push that through. We know what it means. It was it's been the slogan of Hamas, and it means from one side of Israel to the other, get rid of it. And also, but the other thing is that the will be free. What are you talking about? There's this fantasy, this myth that before Israel existed, it was this lovely place where everyone just got on and it was all balloons and parties. And there was some cross-culturalisation happening, like there was in Pakistan. Yep. But, of course, the nationalist movements formed and then everyone gets swirled up into it and so on. But we're talking about a piece of land. We know its history. Before the British had it, the Ottomans, the Mamluks and so on, it's been 2,000 years of mostly Christian and Muslim empires fighting to liberate Jerusalem for themselves, as well as everywhere else that they took. There was a lot of violence and a history of pogroms and so on. You can't free something that was never free. The last time it was free was back when it was the Kingdom of Israel and Judea, right? So since then it hasn't been free. Freeing it is like saying free Colditz Island back to a time when it was a prison. You can't. It's not free. It's not history. Yeah. You're making up your history. But also, to say it's not about calls for violence after the barbaric acts of October the 7th is just really quite insulting, I think. Mm-hmm. So yes, free speech, sure. Say a mean, nasty, evil little thing that makes you happy, but and also with the intifada that's going on across the Middle East and Africa and so on, and the jihadi groups and so on. Don't pretend that there's not violence involved in this.
Oh yeah, and I think Hamas, they have been associated with some violence, and for them to say that we just want Palestine to be free, it's not going to be free. It's going to be ruled by Hamas. It's going to be ruled by absolute genocidal barbarians who are going to execute gays and deny women rights. So the freedom that you're begging for might not be the freedom you get. Anyway, moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, and the NHS has more diversity, equity and inclusion coordinators than it knows what to do with, but not enough to stop it being anti-Semitic, Kerry.
Are we having an anti-Semitism theme now? Have we just moved on to this? Claire Murdoch, the Trust Chief Executive, interrupted a summer holiday to say to personally and swiftly address how the message was sent in error. So the message we're talking about is one telling staff they don't need to attend an anti-Semitism training. She explains a small number of concerns were raised by some individuals through the BAME network, which is the Black, Asian and Minority Ethnic Community within the Trust about. So basically this was a training exercise you could go along to learn a bit about anti-Semitism, which I personally don't think would do anyone that much harm. It depends what it is, really. It's you've got the kind of hatred we're teaching right now, which is all about social justice and structures and so on, which I don't think is very helpful. We're very much kind of lost in this idea that that entire all white people and so on, and entire identities have got this inherent evil that comes out of them and so on that can't be gotten rid of.
And universities and organisations have diversity coordinators who explicitly state we need to abolish whiteness, which sounds like the language of genocide to me. And Jews are seen as almost the pinnacle of white people.
The mythical controller of this whole pyramid, rather than people who are 0.2% of the world after 2,000 years of being mass murdered. But the thing is, I think
67% of the headliners. Up tonight.
But hatred's a really interesting subject, how hatred forms, how Nazis worked, and why in the Russian Empire and so on, and across the Middle East, how different forms of hatred that's thousands of years old surely is interesting.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good one to teach. It just depends. I don't know what they're teaching.
Yeah, and obviously there's some, if you're anti-Semitic, you might be opposed to anti-Semitism training, which, it sounds like that might be the case here.
That might have happened.
Quite distressing. At the end of that email, when they said you don't have to go to the anti-Semitism training, they said from 2 p.m. to 3:30, our afternoon will be free. So, I just think we're seeing
from one side of the hospital to the other side of the hospital.
And the only thing anybody cared about was, is there going to be sandwiches?
Are there going to be bagels?
Can I go home early? And is there going to be sandwiches? Anyway, we've got The Guardian now putting forward the idea that working class people just watch TV. They don't work in it, Jonathan.
Well, let's find out again. So working class parents do not see film and TV as viable career for their children. Fair enough. Fair enough for everybody, yeah. So research conducted by Netflix, of all people, in conjunction with the National Youth Theatre, have found that 89% of working-class parents would advise their children against trying to work in the industry because of the perception it's not a sustainable career. So they interviewed 500 students and 2,000 parents, and yeah, it really seems like they're very sensible, loving parents who don't want their children to go into the arts because it is incredibly risky. I mean, I think it's risky for anyone, really.
I've been at GB News for 3 years. It's the longest I've ever had a job.
That's true, but you are still on, what's it called? Apprenticeship.
Forever.
Start getting paid next year. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very difficult thing. If you're Benedict Cumberbatch and you come from a really rich family and...
that does help. It definitely helps.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can afford not to... I mean, I don't know his history, but you can afford not to earn money whilst you're...
Yeah.
You can make your mistakes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
but on the other hand, I was remembering I was really into doing magic tricks and so on when I was a kid, and then
I believe it.
I was. Yeah, I know.
Did you have a fedora?
Obviously, I was. But we had someone come into the school, and he was the careers advice officer. So he sat with us each and talked to us, and I told him I wanted to be. Well, I confessed I wanted to be a magician, and he said, "Right, you can't rely on that. You need something to fall back on. So you need to go to university. You need to get some degrees and so on.
So you
and
saw
then you
him
have
in
that
half.
choice." But here was I did not saw him in a half. This is not where this. It's much better than this. What happened was, about 10, 15 years later, I'm doing magic as a professional and performing to rich and famous around Kensington and so on, and royals and that. And I ended up doing the redundancy parties that happened in the late 80s. And guess who was there? Was this person, this careers advisor, who came, and he was being made redundant.
I've made
so I
your
had the
job
chance to say to him, learn a magic trick. Learn a magic trick, you'll always have something to fall back on. Sorry,
he made his job disappear, but yeah, don't want to step on your punch. Fair enough.
At my school, the dinner ladies were also the career advisors. Anyway, we've got The Guardian now accusing banks of denying access to bank accounts to prostitutes. They seem much more worked up about this than banks denying access to right-wing people, Kerry.
Yes, absolutely. And I think they're just pretending not to recognise them when they come in. You know? This is business accounts, of course, so they can take out personal accounts. But the problem with personal accounts is you have to give your name out, so they're worried about blackmail. And now regulators are stepping in, and there's Dr. Raven Bowen, the chief executive of National Ugly Mugs, who came up with that, which provides support to sex workers. So basically, it's about sex workers being able to carry out their business, and I think not being able to. And it's largely fears about whether they'll get involved with to do with soliciting an unlawful behaviour that happened in brothels and so on, that they don't want to be associated with. But I think the sex workers should go on strike and put their customers' tools down and refuse service to bank managers for a while, and they'll get what they want.
Yeah, and
of course they should be able to get bank accounts.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not illegal to sell sex in this country. Apparently, I just found out. Got some plans to make, and yeah, I think it's a reputational thing for a lot of the banks. They're just worried about the image damage that could be seen. But I mean, it's not like they're like recruiters or something like that. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sex is becoming big business with not just the world of pornography, but also OnlyFans. OnlyFans is
that's pornography, right?
It's a kind of, I think it's pornography.
Well, of course, yeah, it's soft. Well, I think it's all soft. I've heard. I don't know nothing. What is OnlyFans?
Moving on, we've got the Daily Mail with another nail in the coffin of diversity, equity, and inclusion as huge American beer brand Coors drops DEI targets. Sounds like they're actually interested in making money instead, Jonathan.
Nah, go woke, get rich. That's what they say. So another American classic brand rolls back its DEI rules after a backlash. So the iconic American beer brand Molson Coors has been the latest corporate giant to announce a major rollback of its diversity, equity and inclusion policies. So this came about, according to this article, because conservative activist Robbie Starbuck actually messaged executives from Cause, from the company, and let them know that you plan to expose their woke policies, their hiring policies, their marketing policies, and preemptively, they've then made these changes. So it kind of seems like maybe the causation is not correlation or the other way around, whatever you meant to say, but it does seem like they've reacted to this and they've announced publicly that they're getting rid of these DEI goals because they're worried about the backlash they're going to get with, I guess, conservative consumers about having these woke policies. Now, this is really interesting because, especially the last sort of 10 years, companies have done everything they can to look like they're doing all these DEI policies and that kind of thing.
And they thought that's what consumers wanted.
Yeah, well, or that's what they were incentivized to do through things like BlackRock and other. I mean,
ESG funds, so environmental funds.
I think
but essentially, the core of it came from when there was Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
The banks and big business were like, how can we get the public to think we're good again? And so they were like, I don't know, we'll put some LGBTQ flags up.
And now it's not profitable. They're just axing all of it, and that shows they were never sincere. They don't care about you at all.
You don't think so? You're really cynical.
Do you not think Ben and Jerry's cares about you?
Do you know, I think, yeah, absolutely. And when I see banks with rainbows on them, and so I think they really do care about it. They care about the society they're in. This has all been some mad fashion of an intimidating ideology that's taken over everything so fast. And it's not that there weren't some good ideas. It's not that saying let's have some systems to help people from underachieving parts of society or where there's other difficulties and so on, help them rise up or get role models from their group and so on. But this became an insanity where we just have to DIY everything. And became meaningless for it. And also just flew in the face of talent, hard work and achievement. So it's nice that we're getting back to that a little bit and say that actually, merit is a good thing.
Although apparently a lot of academics and a lot of diversity advocates say that meritocracy, that word is white supremacist. Which is, I mean, that sounds like a racist thing for them to say, to be honest. Anyway, we've got just one more section to go and you won't want to miss it. We've got Kamala taking tips from Labour and why a third of Brits think that they can solve a murder. See you in a few minutes.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
70% of population will make a judgment on someone just by looking at them. And within 2-3 seconds, we make a decision if we like someone or not.
Really? Is it that quick?
So it's actually very, very fast. So before we have a chance to kind of express what we want to say, our subconscious mind is kind of looking for clues. So you look at someone and you look at their, for example, I don't know, the watch they're wearing, maybe the makeup. I spent literally my whole childhood learning, being absolutely mesmerized by my mom's ability to choose different style of clothing for different style personalities. British definitely take a pride in their appearance. They do spend time to look good. There is a lot of amazing British designers. For me, it was always about that feeling that I've learned from my mom's shop, how the people were living, buying certain things. And I was like, oh my God, they look happy. They've got this big smile on their face. My main objective always was to make people feel good. So now as a stylist, I help them to go through style therapy. I help them to discover colors that are good for their colors that they wear them close to their face, but also it sets the tone for their wardrobe. And then we look at the outfit formula. So it's, When I look at Ellie's dress sense, I was just thinking, okay, she likes to be polished.
I do like to be polished.
Exactly. Elegant. Timeless. I look at the reference to the dress you're wearing today. It's that kind of Chanel, black and white, timeless, never go out of fashion. So for me, it's about, it's not the trends, but how you would like your personal style to be and how timeless it can be.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Weekday weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m, followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain, followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It was my cousin.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Daily Mail now, and Labour don't seem to be helping anyone in Britain, but they are helping the Democrats to get elected, Kiri.
How Kamala Harris is looking for inspiration from Britain's left-wing government to beat Trump in November. Of course, she's not at all. But she is having Deborah Mattinson, one of the Prime Minister Starmer's top advisors. In fact, she was the Director of Strategy for Keir Starmer. So basically, she's going over to America to talk about her methods and what might help them. And basically, this is a press release that she's probably put out to say, hey, look at my career and I'm doing this thing. But really, and she's going to advise them to do less of the hope and change stuff and to do more of a laser focus on winning states. But the hope and change stuff, of course, is very popular in America. The recent Democrat convention was basically a load of lobotomized delirium of people just talking about how happy they are and how amazing everything is.
Joy. Joy seemed to be the word.
No, joy, and they just kept repeating joy. And there's much, as Keir Starmer says, the word pain, really. Kind of their complete opposite. But it's hard to know whether... It's really hard to know whether Mattinson actually did a good job anyway, because by that time the Tory party had become pretty toxic in this country. And so I know we're going to get people writing, and not to me it wasn't, but with the voters. And so what she actually should be advising Harris is to say what you need is a really unpopular party who are going to be voted out anyway. Then you're not in a good chance. And you need a former leader of your party that was an extremist and that people wanted out anyhow. So I don't know what really she's going to add to that.
I think she's just going to have sort of absolutely no policies and lock people up for tweets. That's what she's going to do.
Just like Keir Starmer. We've got The Guardian now, and apparently a third of British people think that they could solve a murder. In fairness to British people, I'd say about a third of them are smarter than your average police detective, Jonathan.
Not the ones I've dated, Leo. So, elementary, Watson. Why 1/3 of Britons believe they could solve a murder. So, this has all come about because true crime documentaries, podcasts, books and films have all created a generation of armchair detectives who are convinced they could succeed where police have failed. So a new study has shown that a third of Britons are convinced that they could solve a murder case. And then 18% believe they could find a missing person. It depends where they were, I suppose. And 17% think they could solve a fraud case. I think people are seriously overestimating their kind of perceptive and deductive capabilities. Just in general, half the people didn't realise that Joe Biden had been dead for 3 years and they were still sort of cheering that on. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you reckon people...
I think people are much smarter than that, Kiri. I think these people... I think we should have a volunteer police detective squad.
I think what's happened is that TV programmes, the fiction makes it all look easy, but really what they should do is we should be making police programmes that are really incredibly boring.
Yeah,
so people realise how the real job would look. But here's an interesting thing. This is according to a new study. And here's a bit of detective work I did, because I read through the whole thing and realised that at no point does it mention any study. There is no... Seriously, look down. There is no study here at all. So...
you just passed the test.
Yes, I think I've solved this one. Someone's making stuff up.
OK. Well, we've got the Express now with a sign that Britain is no longer a caring, high-trust society, Kiri.
Nonsense. So I refuse to give up a train seat for elderly women. She should have thought ahead. Well, this is a 32-year-old lady who was... And at first...
That's not that old.
No, she's not the one.
Oh.
The story, as you first get it, is that she's sitting in a chair and an elderly woman comes over and asks to have her chair and she refuses to give it up, which... I had that recently. I was on a bus and I was on that seat where it says give it up for an elderly or a disabled person, but then both on at the same time, so I wasn't sure who to give it up to, so I kind of made them fight it out, see
intersectionality of the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. What actually happened here, though, is this is like a 7-hour journey from London to Aberdeen, and the woman in the 32-year-old has booked a seat in the first class because she needed to get work done and she was tired from all her convention, whatever she'd been up to. And then it's not really, it's a 60-year-old woman comes over and says, hey, age, get out. But, like, no, you're supposed to... I mean, if she was, like, really disabled or whatever... I'm 57, mate, so what are you trying to say?
No, I'm saying that's not old.
No, exactly.
Yeah, that's you know,
yes.
you middle...
I give up my seat for someone,
not with today's medical advancements.
Chairs.
So, and she did find a seat, but it was in standard class.
The staff managed to get her a seat. Well, she didn't have one booked, so...
She wanted first class.
Why should you don't get to say, I'm 60, I'm going to go into first class and just move someone out of your seat, so they got to stand for 7 hours. There's being polite and being respectful, and then there's being absolutely bonkers.
I think I would have got up, but then limped really obviously down the corridor to make her feel bad. And kept looking back at her every time.
And what if she didn't? She wouldn't feel bad. Not someone who's ordering.
Then I'd throw my coffee on her. That's what I did.
Yeah. So you would let her stand as well.
No, I'd give her the seat, but I'd make her feel horrible about it.
Oh, right, yeah. That's the classic, that's the British thing to do.
Passive-aggressive.
Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at tomorrow's front pages. The Daily Mirror has Now Get Them Justice. The Telegraph has Sewage Leak Bosses to face 2 years in jail. The Guardian has Grenfell, a disaster caused by dishonesty and greed. The Times has killed by greed and a culture of dishonesty. The Eye has everyone failed them. And finally, the Daily Star has I'll tell you all about the little green men. That's Donald Trump. He's going to release the X-Files. And those were your front pages. And that's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests, Carey and Jonathan. Josh Howie will be here tomorrow night at 11 p.m. with Adam Kumas and Nick Dixon. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. Until then, good night and God bless. Goodbye.
We don't clap.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update. We're at the start of a pretty wet period across southern areas with a warning in force all the way through until the end of Friday. But it will remain quite dry actually across north and western areas. We've got high pressure starting to build in from the north and west. We will develop an easterly wind, however, so that's going to drag in some cloud across eastern areas of Scotland, northeastern England as well overnight tonight. Further north and west though, staying dry and clear across Northern Ireland and western areas of Scotland as well as some northwestern areas of Wales. Into the south though, some outbreaks of very heavy rain starting to develop, and we do have that warning in force. So potentially a bit of a fresh start to the day across northwestern areas of Scotland, but it's across the south with plenty of cloud around and outbreaks of heavy rain. We could see some travel disruption where we have got that warning in force. Not everywhere is going to see the rain all day, but where you do see it is likely to bring some surface water. Could be quite a murky start to the day across eastern areas of Scotland as well as northeastern England, but plenty of sunshine across Northern Ireland, the Western Highlands as well as the islands throughout Thursday, and it will feel quite warm in that sunshine with light winds. Much better weather than we've had lately across these areas, and in fact temperatures could climb higher than they have done since May by Friday across parts of the northwest. Very different story though in the south with outbreaks of heavy rain developing, most likely to turn quite heavy across southwestern areas of England, South Wales as well. So pretty dull day across the south, but quite a big difference from the northwest. And a similar day to come on Friday. Further outbreaks of rain across the south, so we'd like to see further flooding issues and surface water. Easterly wind will continue to bring some cloud to the coast of the northeast, but it will burn back a little more, so there will be more in the way of sunshine on Friday, more widely in northern areas. Another fine day to come Saturday and Sunday in the north with further outbreaks of heavy rain across southern areas. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
How would you like it? Luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.